Welcome to Writer's Digest Presents. Hosted by the editors of Writer's Digest, this monthly podcast features conversations with writing and publishing experts whose insights will help ignite your creative vision, hone your skills, build your platform, and get your work out into the world.
Hello everyone, I'm Michael Woodson, and welcome to Writer's Digest Presents. And today, I don't know if it'll quite be spring yet, but when this streams, it'll be at least very close to spring, and we are hopefully out of the worst depths of the winter. And with spring, I often think about just renewal and getting out there into our communities and finally doing the things that we have been not able to do because of the cold and the weather. And for me, a lot of that is just being in conversation with people who love books and going to my favorite local indie bookstore and perusing for a while and talking to the owner, Greg, at Down, who I adore, and having him recommend something to me that I'd never heard of. And it's just such an important part of the publishing industry. It is the people who are hand selling those books who are just as passionate about reading and writing as we are and help us find our next favorite book. And the way that the world is now, online shopping is impossible to avoid. And for a very long time, Amazon has been the number one resource for people to buy books and for authors to promote books on large discount. And there are a lot of reasons why Amazon is not the best choice for writers and readers, and especially not for local business. And there's one organization in particular, who's been fighting against Amazon for 6 years now, and that is bookshop.org. And we love Bookshop here at Writer's Digest. We love what they do. We love that they support our favorite local indie bookstore, your favorite local indie bookstore. And today I'm sitting down to talk to the founder, Andy Hunter, who has a really interesting history within and outside of the publishing world, how Bookshop got started, the 2 a.m. Horrible mind thoughts that he had about, the business not working, and how ultimately he succeeded, and how Bookshop has grown into something even bigger than they could have imagined at this point. I really, really loved talking to Andy. I think you should go support bookshop.org. And yeah, I hope you learned something from this. So without further ado, Writer's Digest presents Andy Hunter. Andy, thank you so much for joining me today and joining Writer's Digest. I'd like to start with just a little bit of a chronology from you, how you got started in the publishing world and how that led to bookshop.org.
Yeah, well, I'll try to make a long story short. I had been in media, pop culture magazines, that kind of thing. I loved being able to hang out with filmmakers and musicians and all that, but my passion was writing and literature. And so I decided to go to an MFA program. I went to MFA at Brooklyn College, worked under Michael Cunningham at the time, worked with a bunch of great writers like Jenny Offel, for example, and started this idea for electric literature, which in 2008 we launched, which tried to take all the things that people were worried about, distracting or destroying literature, and use them instead in the service of literature to reach new people. At the time, like Philip Roth had said, in 20 years, there's going to be no serious readers of literary fiction. There was a lot of people worrying about social media, everything from YouTube to video games. Cell phones were new, rather, smartphones were new. And I was like, well, if we don't embrace these, this is where people are going. And if we don't embrace it, then we seed the playing field. We say like, okay, we're not going to go near that stuff. We care about books.
Right.
Then we seed the battlefield to people that don't have the same values as we do. And so electric literature in the very beginning was just like, let's use these things to promote the culture that we care about and we love, and to make sure that we're part of this popular culture that's moving online. And we were like really early to that idea, and for at least 2 or 3 years, we had more followers on Twitter than Penguin Random House. Like we had, by embracing it and by being optimistic about technology, we grew a huge audience very quickly, which was awesome. And that opened a lot of doors for me. So I was a total outsider. I had no connections in the publishing industry. But the fact that I was able to start this thing that suddenly had this huge audience of younger readers too, because a lot of publishers and the establishment were like, how do we reach all like new people? And we were reaching those people. So that opened doors for me, and I got job offers and things like that from that. In 2014, I started with an independent press, Catapult, where I was a publisher there, and kind of shaped their strategy. And then I also co-created Literary Hub, which was supposed to be a website that brought together the best of the literary internet. So they might have like a great article on a small lit blog that has a readership of 400, but let's bring that to a readership of 200,000, etc. And LitHub took off, did extremely well, is now the second most popular, I think, book site in the world underneath Goodreads. And so from that initial, like, we're going to expose this to 200,000 readers, LitHub is now close to 3.5 million to 4 million readers every month. So each one of my things, like, it all started very DIY with very little resources. Like, nobody was writing me big checks. Like, LitHub is funded by Grove Atlantic, which is an independent press. But we were able to punch way above our weight just by being savvy and passionate and by using technology. So that all led to like Bookshop, which was kind of the result of me being in the publishing world at that point for a decade, and watching half of the independent bookstores in the country go out of business, and being like, you know what? Sure, the literary world needs to get online, but bookstores do too, because bookstores are true evangelists and activists for reading and literature and the importance of books in our communities. And I knew that a future where they all went away was not a future where books were going to be an important part of our culture and social fabric, because we need them there. Just like we need libraries, like they are where literary culture takes root, and people discover reading, and authors discover their fans and meet their fans, et cetera, et cetera. Like, they're very important. So I created Bookshop as a way to address that issue, try to get independent bookstores, instead of to fight the internet, to actually use the internet to succeed and be able to combat Amazon, which at that point had almost reached 50% of all book sales.
Yeah.
And since then, Amazon has grown a little bit, but they have grown a lot slower than they used to in the previous 15 years.
Yeah. You saying, sort of referring to yourself as an outsider coming into publishing, do you think that perspective was helpful? Because I think a lot of times when you're in it, it's harder to see something for what it is. And then so a new fresh pair of eyes can help sort of unlock something, because Amazon's, to your point, just was taking over so quickly for so long. I don't know if anybody really knew how to begin to tackle the problem that was Amazon.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's great to bring in outsiders' eyes, and also like a different toolkit. Like, before I started Electric Lit, I did technology stuff in my early career as a day job. Just I needed to make money, and I actually got a temp job at Disney for $12 an hour in their IT department. The guy I was sitting next to was solving the Y2K bug, and he was making $120 an hour. So I'm like, oh, he's making 10 times as much as I am. Maybe I should learn how he does what he's doing. So I learned all this business technology stuff in my 20s, and then I'm like, but I don't want to do that with my life. So then I got into editorial and kind of culture writing, and for a while there, I thought these were two different lives that would never come together. But then I've realized since that we need people with these skills in the literary world.
Yeah.
Because this is the battleground. This is, as I said before, like we need to be playing the game on the same playing field as everybody else. So by bringing those skills and being an outsider, I was able to see potential problems and propose solutions that other people weren't seeing. But also, even when I tried to describe the solution to them, they didn't see it. Like it was really hard to raise money for Bookshop.
I watched an interview with you talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was it was one of the loneliest periods of my life. For the 9 months that I would trek to different investors' offices and publishing houses, and sometimes prominent authors who almost invested, people in Silicon Valley, just all kinds, and almost every door closed in my face. And the position that they would take was like, people in America only care about two things. They care about price and they care about speed. Well, Amazon's going to beat you on price and they're going to beat you on speed, therefore you're going to fail. And like, well, there's a lot of people that are paying for organic local vegetables, and and I pay for sustainable energy. So I pay like 40% more for my electric bill, which sucks, but it keeps me, turning my air conditioner off. And it's all from renewables. And so I know, like, you don't have to have everybody making those self-conscious, positive, ethical consumer decisions to make a viable business. Like, you can, if you get 5% of them, you're doing great.
Yeah.
And I think 5% of them are willing to do that. And I think, so I believed in it. And then I managed to find like literally 7 people who believed in it.
Wow.
Enough to like put their money behind it. None of them thought it would succeed to the degree that it has, though. It is actually we've even done, like, we're at twice the level as I had originally put in that investor presentation that I was getting the door shut on me. So we're doing quite a bit better than even I had hoped.
Wow. Do you think, I was going to ask this later, but I'll just go ahead and ask now. I was telling you before we started that I've been on board with Bookshop since day one, and I was looking at the emails, and in looking at my emails, my fan emails to you guys, those were emails from January 2020, and then Bookshop launched, like, I don't know, you said late January, mid-January? Yeah. And that was sort of right in the midst of the very beginning, and then in the midst of the COVID pandemic, and I'm just wondering, what I have to imagine that was both horrifying and a little bit of an opportunity to show just exactly what Bookshop was promising to be able to deliver to communities. So I'm just wondering, like, what was that like for you launching in that time?
Well, the pandemic definitely radically changed how successful it would have been. And the funny thing is, it's like, I had such urgency to start working on it in June of 2019. And I knew that it would take us at least like 7 or 8 months to build it. And that's like optimistically. I spent almost every dollar I raised. I had raised $750,000. I spent $550,000 launching it. So we launched with very little money in the bank. We probably would have gone out of business in 8 months. But if we had launched even a month later, we wouldn't have been there to support business in the pandemic. So it does seem like this weird fated thing that we just like launched at exactly the right time. Because like the first month, February, we put that ticker on the top of the website where it says exactly how much we raised for bookstores. And in the beginning, that was a huge risk, because I was like, well, now if we fall flat on our face, everybody's going to know.
It's true.
And like, it looks kind of sad to see $960 raised for local bookstores. So for February, it looked kind of sad. And we had 4 employees. We were subletting the conference room of the Baffler magazine. And it was like as scrappy as DIY as you could.
Wow.
Everybody, I was not getting paid. All the people were getting paid $42,000 a year. And then in March, the pandemic hit. And suddenly we went from something like 200 bookstores on the platform to 1,200.
Wow.
They all signed up en masse. We went from like one day, I'm like, oh my God, we just made $50,000 in a single day. Like, that's what we made all the month in February. Well, the next day we made $150,000. Almost all that money was bookstores who were forced to shutter their doors because of the pandemic, who then joined us as quickly as possible. And luckily we had built the thing so that you could set up a bookstore in less than a half an hour, and that you didn't need to be technical. My guideline when I created this thing was like, could my mom do it? My mom could do it. It was okay. If it was too complicated for my mom, we wouldn't, like, we had to find a simpler way. And and my mom, basically, it took her 2 years to learn how to answer a FaceTime call. So by doing it like that and making it as easy as setting up like a Facebook page, we were able to onboard tons of bookstores. And
It's interesting.
and they started selling in really big bookstores like Harvard Bookstore, Book People in Austin, and tiny bookstores were all jumped on the platform. And so we grew extremely rapidly. What it was like for me personally was like, I was in a 420 square foot apartment in Brooklyn. I had 2 kids. They were both doing remote learning for the first time. And I was trying to launch this business. I had to hire like 30 people in about 5 weeks. I was going to bed at 2 in the morning, getting up at 6 in the morning. And it was insane. But the great thing about it is that you are actually helping people in need, right? So it wasn't like, oh my God, my life's a nightmare. It was more like feeling like, you were an ER doctor, something like that. You're running off fumes. It's very stressful and you're exhausted, but you know that what you're doing matters and keeping the site up mattered. So it was a really wild time, and very intense, but I think extremely rewarding.
Yeah, it's interesting too because we were so isolated in that time, literally, and because it's so indie bookstore oriented, it helped remind, I think, readers and people generally like the necessity of community in that way. And it reminds me, this is going to be kind of tangential, I promise I have a point, but I remember even like in high school or middle school, maybe, I don't know, but there was a book coming out that was huge, and my friends and I were going to like the midnight release of it at our local bookstore, but my one friend wasn't coming because she said she ordered her book on Amazon and it was going to be on her front door in the morning anyway. And even then I remember thinking like, that sounds kind of boring. Like, and like, I think it points to something, this might be a little bit tinfoil hat of me, but it like something that's a little bit more sinister about what Amazon does, which I think is like willfully misunderstands the importance of local bookstores in the same way that I think that like streaming services willfully misunderstand the need of movie theaters. And this like sociological idea of the third place. And I think it's on purpose. I think that the more isolated someone is, the more susceptible they are to propaganda. And so I think local bookstores are Amazon's natural enemy. And what I love is that Bookshop, its foundation is the local bookstore. So I guess I don't know, like my question maybe is then like, at what point did those ideas intersect for you? That like, not only do we need to sort of fight Amazon's rise, but we can also be supporting bookstores at the same time.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say I also have a tinfoil hat in my desk drawer. And I used to say more fanciful things. Like I remember when we launched and I was like really riled up. I'm like, if everything is delivered to you and all of your experiences of other people are mediated through a screen, and how are you not like the dude in the pod in the Matrix? Like you're like
Totally.
in the pod.
Yes.
Your nutrients are being fed to you in the pod. Like you're like, you don't need some benevolent force to put you in the pod. You're like crawling into it and saying, please,
yes,
leave me alone in my pod. and so like battling that is so important because it is like there is part of, I think, everybody that is like easily convinced that they don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
But the end result of not getting out of bed and not interacting with other people is depression, and then that feeds into it. And I really don't think it is tinfoil hat to say like rubbing shoulders with other human beings, being part of your community, knowing your neighbors, being able to walk down your main street, go into your bookstore, discover new books, because discovery is much better in a physical bookstore than if you go to Amazon. Talk to people who are passionate about the same things that you're passionate about. and also do meaningful work. The people who are
Yeah.
working in the bookstores have jobs that they care about that align with their passions. All that stuff is so foundational to
Yeah.
human happiness. And so, yeah, the future that we were going towards, and that we're still going towards, but at a lesser accelerated pace, was an inhuman future, and we want to have a human future. And investing in bookstores is a small part of that. It's like what I felt I could do
Yeah.
at that time. And then in terms of like, I think the other part of your question was like why I started it or what really motivated me. Well, I was looking at trend lines, and I was looking, okay, Amazon's growing 8% year over year as in just their book market share.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like 35% in 2015, and then 39%, and then blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, oh, wait. So they're going to hit 50% in 2020. And then by 2026, they're going to be at 80%. And what happens at 80%?
Yep.
One retailer that honestly doesn't give a crap about books
Absolutely.
is in charge of what 80% of people are reading. And like books, so essential to democracy, to our sense of ourselves and others, to the advancement of human consciousness. Like what technological development exceeds the book in like helping humans evolve their consciousness, their sense of fairness, justice, everything. Books, like the moment that the printing press was invented and people became literate, and that kind of information flow is like a key moment. Like we don't want something that is so incredibly essential to human society to be under control of one entity.
Yeah.
Even if it's a benevolent entity, you don't want it to.
Yeah.
Now with bookstores, it's like 3,000 weirdos, and that's how it should be.
Totally.
3,000 weirdos should control who reads what, and one of those people loves romantasy, and one of them loves science fiction, and that's great, you know. So making sure to democratize that that space, and that books are not going to be under a monopoly control. Like that was a major motivation. Now my other motivation was looking at the numbers for e-commerce. E-commerce was growing 15% every single year as a portion of retail. So if Amazon's growing 8% every year and e-commerce is growing 15% every year, there's going to be a mass extinction event for local bookstores, and it wasn't too far away. It was like within the next decade. This is like 2018, 2019 when I was coming up with the idea for a bookshop. Now, the amazing thing is that Bookshop like is a success story, and we have increased the amount of e-commerce revenue for local bookstores by 600%
Wow.
versus 2019. Bookstores are selling more on their own websites. Last year, they were up 21% on their own websites, while Bookshop grew 15%. In 2019, there were under 1,900 members of the American Bookseller Association. Now the ABA has 3,200 plus members. They've had a 75% membership growth. Last year, 422 bookstores opened and only about 45 bookstores closed.
Wow.
This is like, nobody would have believed me. If I had told them, and I tried to tell them in my investor meeting they got rejected me for, that there could be a renaissance and a resurgence of independent bookstores, that this extinction event was reversible and we could intervene and change that trajectory, nobody would have believed me.
Yeah.
But we have done it to some extent, although we have to do a lot more.
Sure.
We're not finished.
Yeah. Have you since, I mean, I have so many follow-ups, but have you noticed a shift in how like the industry reacts to Bookshop now, 6 years in? Like are publishers or authors paying more attention to Bookshop or in a different way or anything?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Still not as much as I would like,
of course.
but you know, I am still like, you guys should be like doing everything you can to make sure we succeed.
Absolutely.
But you know, they are supportive.
Yeah, for sure.
They like us. I think that the publishing industry in general is not innovative, and they're slow to nurture innovation. So like they want to do the same thing year over year, no matter what, and something comes up and it's new and it's working, like they're not going to be the first to nurture it. So in a way, it's like we have had to succeed on our own. There's been some small like publisher advertising revenue. Like that's one way to really measure like, do they support you? is,
Yeah.
are they willing to give you some marketing dollars in support of their titles on your platform? Some, like not a ton,
Mm-hmm.
but better than nothing. But or like, are they willing to send a big author and say, we want you to do your pre-order campaign with bookshop.org and not
Right.
Amazon? Very rarely.
Interesting.
So there's a lot more that they could do,
Yeah.
but they certainly they feel good about it. They understand it's a positive thing.
Yeah, for sure. You also mentioned earlier, sort of it is so much more meaningful to like browse a bookstore than it is Amazon. And I had a question about sort of the web experience, because you're right. I mean, there's nothing. There is nothing calming about going to Amazon's website. It is like the website equivalent of like a 90s fast food chain is just like stimulation overload for me. And I think, and I'm curious about this with Bookshop's website. It really feels very much like I'm visiting my favorite local indie bookstore's website. And I'm just wondering about like the design around Bookshop. Like, was that intentional? Like, how Bookshop look come to be?
I mean, I had a few principles. One of them is that it had to be clean and simple and
Yeah.
really easy to buy and not frustrating.
You're right.
People on the internet have an incredibly low frustration tolerance. So, simplicity was number one. Number two is I wanted it to be like delightful and feel fresh and kind of clean and bright and fun, a pleasant place to be. A lot of rather corporate bookstore websites feel kind of bank-like,
Yeah.
or they're stuffy, or they're trying to be kind of elite. I was watching my brother play Candy Crush when I was thinking about bookshop.org. And I'm like, I think our buy buttons should look like little bright red good
Wow.
cookies. Like it should be like, it should feel like I'm having fun. I feel
Totally.
good.
Interesting.
So that was part of it. And then another part of it was foregrounding the humans behind bookselling. So the idea that like most of the content on the site is going to be lists that are curated by human beings who have passions about whatever it is. So if there's an awesome list about space travel. I just like books that feature space travel by somebody who loves space travel, and they wanted to put together their favorite books. Like that's the perfect list for bookshop.org. That wouldn't appear anywhere else. You get to see like, oh, this was created by this person at this local bookstore who has a passion for this aspect. And if you go to the homepage of Bookshop, you got like 5 bookstores on there. You've got literary organizations and literary magazines from like the Atlantic to the Paris Review to Electric Literature. They're all on there. They're curating their picks.
Right. We're on there.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels like a hub and a hive of like all these different players that constitute the community around books. And that's the way it's supposed to feel. And that's a huge difference from Amazon, which feels like I'm being programmed by an algorithm.
Right.
And so that was the other essential part. And I will say that like I'm pretty happy. I'm like 60% happy with the bookshop.org shopping experience, but I want it to be the best place in the world to buy books online if you love books. And I think that there's a lot more we can do to really create that. If you love books and you go to Bookshop, you should be like, oh, this is like my home. I love this place. This is the only place I want to shop for books from the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Except for in person in my local bookstore. And I think that, there's a lot more we can do to get to that level.
Can you share any changes that you hope to happen, or is that?
Well, some of it is basic stuff like more assets, like cookbooks have beautiful spreads.
Oh yeah, totally.
You should be able to see these beautiful spreads in a cookbook. You should be able to do more, like there's enhanced assets that publishers usually make available. Sometimes they'll have a YouTube video, etc. Like those should all be on the pages. Another thing is like if you have reading goals, like you should be able to put your reading goals in your account profile, and then when you buy a book, maybe it shows up as like a gray outline, and then when you finish reading it, you click on it and it fills in with the cover, and then you can look at your profile and be like, oh, first of all, I raised $100 for local bookstores last year, and I feel great about that. Second of all, I bought 30 books, I finished 18 of them, I feel great about that. So it's kind of like slightly gamified, but also kind of replacing some of the functionality of Goodreads.
Totally.
I would love to do that stuff like that, and also like more interaction with authors and more discussions. I'm not crazy about like 5-star reviews, especially from anonymous accounts. I think they're often abused, and like the behavior both on Goodreads and on Amazon reviews is like not really something I want to replicate. But I do want to give people a sense of the conversation around a book. So bringing some conversation in or hosting conversations, authors who might be going to Reddit to do Ask Me Anythings,
Right.
go to Bookshop and do it. You know, like you can, just in the same way that authors visit bookstores. And anything that we can do to make it feel more like visiting a local bookstore. All these things are very challenging, especially now that like half of the traffic is on a phone. Like how do you create a local bookstore experience on somebody's phone with unlimited screen real estate? But I think there are clever things we can do, and that's just a few of the ideas that I have.
I'm curious about this. You might not have an answer for this, but like I watched an interview where you talked about doing the math and figuring out how many customers you needed in order to break even, and I'm wondering, like, what did that research look like for you, and did it reveal anything to you about like people's habits nationally? I was thinking about, my husband went to a conference once and there was someone on a panel from Netflix, and they mentioned like the DVD subscription aspect of Netflix, and her point was that that still exists. People still subscribe to our Netflix or our DVD part of our business. It's much smaller, of course, but our research revealed that the majority of people who subscribe to our DVDs are on the West Coast and the East Coast, and they were very like people who worked in the arts, and like the most of Middle America was who was into their streaming service mostly. And so I was just wondering, like, do you have similar like research, and did it reveal anything about how you plan to reach customers?
Yeah. Well, we didn't have the money to pay for research.
Yeah, of course.
But we'd already reached customers. So it was in the beginning we were flying not completely blind, because I had a lot of instincts.
Yeah.
And the instincts turned out to be right. You know, there was that anecdote was like, yeah, I woke up at 3 a.m, like 2 weeks before we were supposed to launch, finally deciding to do the math of how many customers we would need to become break even. And the answer was like 380,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, the first year LitHub reached about 250,000. So somehow I reached 50% more than people who LitHub reached in its first year in 8 months. But I'm not asking them to just visit a website. I'm actually asking them to buy a book, which is going to be much harder than getting them to just visit a website. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm like doomed. And so I just lay there feeling doomed.
At 2 a.m.
Yeah. And then, but, you know, I knew that people love local bookstores because I love local bookstores, and I have that passion. And I knew that the people in the book community, and the people who are book buyers, and the people who write about books, and the people who work in publishing companies, they all had formative experiences where they loved to visit local bookstores. So I thought, like, you know, and I'm pretty good at getting a message out online. So I felt like it's going to appeal to people. And the thing about Bookshop that's different from a lot of startups that want to go in and disrupt an industry is that our industry would be sympathetic to the startup. Like if we try to do this, most players, like whether it's a magazine with a book section or the New York Times Book Review or Penguin Random House or John Green, the author, most of them would want it to succeed.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
So a lot of times when you go into an industry, like everyone's against you. They're like, uh-oh, you're trying to steal my lunch. But in this case, it's like, oh, we get to go into an industry and say, like, this is what we're trying to do. Like, give us a hand, help us.
I'll share our lunch.
So exactly. Let's all share. And that's what it is. It's like a winner shares all model.
Yeah.
Where everybody can participate. And so by relying on word of mouth and relying on getting different communities in, and get them to join, I realized that that's how you get to 350,000 customers, is by going to this bookstore. Well, they have 5,000 customers. go to this literary magazine. Well, they've got, 20,000 readers.
Mm-hmm.
And go to this podcast and go to this like Bookstagrammer. And by cobbling together these two different communities, some of which have 50 people in it, or a book club with 20 people, some of it which have like an audience of potentially millions, like NPR, but getting them all on board and getting them all to spread the word to their followers is how we could reach that kind of customer base. So it wasn't just me in my living room trying to get 350,000 customers. It's me trying to get 3,500 partners that can each bring an average of 100 customers.
Yeah, wow.
And that's how we solve that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Like, this is a situation where like people within the industry are probably like, yeah, let's try to make this work. Let's work together. Yeah. It's making me think of like changes within the industry and how maybe Bookshop also navigates that. And I'm thinking about this endless prevalence of AI. And I recently interviewed an author and we talked a lot about AI, and it was very fascinating and encouraging. But I'm just curious. I mean, AI has infiltrated every single industry, and publishing is one of them. And I'm just wondering, has AI impacted the work Bookshop does?
Not significantly yet. The way it impacts us right now is we talk to our suppliers about not allowing any AI on the platform. We don't want AI generated books unless they are disclosed as being AI generated or created with the help of AI. There are cases where it's actually a legitimate book, and somebody used AI in some way. I mean, James Frey, he admitted to using AI in his last book. Like, am I supposed to pull James Frey now? I think he used it as a tool. There's also poets that have been experimenting with AI, and like that's what their whole project is, like AI poetry. And if they're investigating it as artists, am I going to ban their book? No. So there is some threshold where we can allow AI assisted work, but it's a pretty narrow band. The vast majority of AI generated books are slop and garbage and exist to deceive a customer into purchasing it, and that is a sale that is lost from an individual, a real human author. So in general, we don't allow AI. We try our best to keep it off the platform, and when we do see something that is obviously AI generated, we pull it.
Yeah.
The tricky thing is that we're committed to supporting independent authors, right? We don't want a self-published author to not be able to sell their book on Bookshop. So that means we have to basically leave the doors open, and trust that people are going to follow our policies, and then clean it up on the other side.
Sure.
The problem with that policy is it like the internet filled with angry people don't understand it, and so they're just like, they'll see one AI generated book on our platform that we missed, that it just came up, like maybe it was added last week,
right? And
immediately like call us out. It's like, why are you allowing this garbage? And it's tricky. So I hope that people can have patience with us. We are doing our best, but right now for us the main change is just that it added an administrative burden to us to remove it, and a kind of like ethical parsing of like under what circumstances is AI okay, that we're still navigating. In terms of like us using AI, we don't use it yet. Like and I don't think we'll ever use it for recommendations. Possibly we could use it to make our search a little bit better if somebody's searching for like the best books on the Civil War, but I think even in that case, we would want to be going to human curation first. So, we're going to, and for our software engineers, I mean, apparently AI is like helping software engineers write a lot faster. If that helps us get to our goal of being the best place to shop online for a book lover, then, maybe we'll use some AI tools. But right now, our posture for AI is skeptical and defensive and being very cautious, because we care about humans, and like the whole purpose of our site and the whole reason that people shop at us is, instead of Amazon, is because of those ethical stances. So those are the most important for us.
You mentioned self-published authors. I was going to ask about that with something else that I think Amazon has done, has made indie authors and self-published authors believe they are like the absolute best possible home for them and their work. And then Amazon makes it like virtually impossible for them to sell their books anywhere else and to be found even. And so I'm just wondering if you wanted to touch on the ways Bookshop does support these self-published authors.
Yeah, for sure. Well, on a very basic level, if a self-published author goes on Indie Spark, Ingram Spark, or Lightning Source, they're automatically on our platform. We've also just onboarded Drafted Digital, which has, I think, 1.2 million indie authors. And we're starting to onboard their ebooks. So that should allow independent bookstores to sell indie authors ebooks for the first time.
Yeah.
Which I truly believe can be a huge sea change. And I think indie authors and indie bookstores should have a natural affinity. They're both like keeping culture around books alive, passionate about the same things, but it was hard for them to work together before. This can give them a great way to work together that doesn't like compete for shelf space on bookstores and opens them up to like a vast catalog. But the thing is, it's a massive behavior change, so it's going to take time. It's going to take time to even let people know that it exists, and then get used to it and give people the tools, give booksellers the tools, so that if somebody comes in, if an indie author comes in and says like, hey, I want to sell my books in your bookstore, which can sometimes be hard for a local bookstore, that they know we can sell your ebooks. Let's feature your ebooks on our homepage, that kind of thing, and that relationship I think can be really strong. And my goal for like in the next 5 to 10 years is to build an ecosystem for ebooks that is on par with Amazon's, and that I don't think we're going to take a ton of Amazon's market share. Well, I would say maybe a ton, but I think they'll still end up selling half of the ebooks in the country, right? But right now they're selling 80%. So if we can get them down from 80% to 50%,
huge,
and create an independent like coalition of indie authors, indie bookstores, and in like an equitable platform that is robust and more open, we gotta try.
Yeah. Would Bookshop ever? The answer might be we are already doing this, but this would be my problem. But would Bookshop ever do like live events or like a conference or anything?
Well, we did a couple in the pandemic. The reason that is a little touchy is that we try not to do anything that puts us in competition with indie bookstores. And so indie bookstores, like if you're a really big author, like you're George Saunders, and you're going to do 6 stops of your book tour, if we announced that we were doing a live broadcast with George Saunders, there would be some bookstores who would be like, oh, like, are you kind of stepping on our toes? I'm not 100% they would feel that way now, and I think that there's ways around that to make sure they can benefit too. Like, what if they're able to sell their books on their pages, like that same book, as affiliates while he's doing the broadcast? I think that there are ways that we can be creative about it, and I think as we grow and want to do more prominent stuff, we probably will experiment with it. But it really came from the bookstores in the beginning, where bookstores were like, we don't want any signed copies. If we don't have the signed copy, we don't want Bookshop to have the signed copy, because we don't want people not shopping in our shops and going to Bookshop instead because they want a signed copy. We don't want, if we're going to get a big author, we don't want to be competing with the bookshop.org author event for that same author. So we kind of decided, we'll just work on other things that don't compete with independent bookstores for now. But if we figure out a way to bring them in and so everybody benefits, then I think we might.
Oh yeah, I would absolutely be at a bookshop convention or conference.
Yeah,
no problem. I would like to sort of close this out by talking about you as a creative person and a reader yourself, and I'm just curious, like, what are you reading right now? What are you gravitating towards? What would you recommend to people right now?
Yeah, well, I mostly read literary fiction, serious nonfiction. The book I loved recently is A Guardian and a Thief by Megha Majumdar, which people are probably familiar with because it was an Oprah Book Club pick. It's pretty widely read. That book was great. I enjoyed, I think it was called Perfection, New York Review of Books, translation of Italian novel, which is kind of about modernity and Instagram lives, and but a kind of rootlessness that people feel in age mediated by digital representation. And that was an interesting book. I'm about to read Famous Men by Julie Bunton, which I'm very excited about. You know, I don't have enough time to read.
I was going to ask, actually.
I read at night now. I've got 2 kids, and I still do Lit Hub, and I still do electric literature.
Yeah.
So I really kind of 3 jobs and 2 kids. So I'm lucky if I get to 16 books a year.
Yeah. That's kind of a lot, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think so, at
what
least.
What I used to read.
Of course, but we all used to, you know. Yeah. I recently also read a Oprah book club pick that I hadn't gotten around to, and it was The Covenant of Water.
Oh yeah.
And because I don't know if you have any reading goals generally. I don't really have annual numerical reading goals anymore, because it just stresses me out. And so this year my reading goal, I told myself, was to read the big books that I keep putting off because their size has been intimidating me, because who has the time? And so if I make it a point, then I will do it. So I started this year with The Bee Sting, which I thought was so good.
Yeah.
And I just finished The Covenant of Water, and everyone was telling me that I was going to love it. And I liked it a lot, but I was not prepared for... have you read The Covenant of Water?
No, I haven't.
It's such a bummer, which is fine, but it's really sad the whole time, and I was just not totally prepared for that. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been meaning to read that book forever, and I work very closely with Grove Atlantic and Berlin, and that was a huge book for Grove. And it's been on my list. My big doorstopper that I keep wanting to read that I never have gotten around to is The Power Broker.
Yeah, I've never read that either.
I think it's somewhere behind me, haunting me.
Of course, always. Yeah, exactly.
Crack the spine.
Yeah. I know, yeah. I have, and so this year, the new Baldwin biography is on my list, because I love James Baldwin, and I've heard that is incredible.
Yeah.
So if you have any gargantuan novels you recommend, I'd love to hear them. Andy, thank you so much. This has been so lovely. Obviously, I think you would want people to... Where can they find you? Bookshop.org?
Yeah, sure. Bookshop.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Writer's Digest Presents. Visit us online at writersdigest.com, and make sure to follow us on social media at Writer's Digest for daily updates on articles, online courses, live events, and more. See you next time.